Greetings and welcome to the SAME Small Business Conference 2020 pre-conference webinar, The Secret to Breaking Down Barriers to Develop New Client Relationships, with your moderator Sally Clark and speaker Jen Newman. This is Ann McLeod coming to you from the SAME National Office. I will be here in the background with my teammate Sarah Staley, assisting with any technical issues you may experience. During the presentation, participants are in a listen-only mode. I'd like to go over a few tools that you can use during the session. Notice the tabs on the toolbar to your right. Use chat to let us know if you have any technical difficulties and to chatter with other attendees. Just click the chat tab, type your comment at the bottom, and hit send. That's it. Feel free to try it now by typing where you're listening from or another fun thing about you. Please remain respectful in your comments, and remember the chat is not for questions for the speaker. So, speaking of questions to the speaker, please use the Q&A tab for that. Just type your question at any time and click send. We'll hold all questions until the end. Don't forget to look for questions already submitted and upvote those you like. This will avoid duplicates and let the moderator know which questions are most relevant. We'll answer the questions with the most upvotes first and get to as many as time allows. And with that, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session, Sally Clark, who is the Vice Chair for Conferences with the Small Business COO. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you so much. And as Ann mentioned, I am on the board, National Board for SAME, as well as the Vice Chair for National Conferences on the Small Business Community of Interest, and the immediate past president for the Mid-Maryland Post. My other day job is that I am a vice president with AOG Group, and we're a program and construction management firm with federal clients nationwide. It is my pleasure to welcome today Jen Newman, a principal with Elevate Marketing Advisors. Jen draws from her over 20 years of AEC industry experience to help firms grow their people and profits. She has developed a reputation for helping firms improve processes, create better leaders, convert doers into successful doer sellers, and develop winning strategies that lead to successful firm growth. And full disclosure, I am a member of Jen's C-suite cohort group that she leads with Elevate Marketing Advisors, and it has been an excellent experience and a great learning experience for all of us that are involved. And so I just want to say thank you to Jen for that opportunity. And also, so here we go. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much, Sally, and thank you, SAME. I have known the organization for many, many years, especially back in my days when I worked in federal marketing. And so thrilled to be here. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to talk about today's topic because here's the thing. I hear people say, well, when we get back to normal, and don't we all want to get back to normal? The truth is, we're going to get back to a new norm. And that's just a fact. We're going through something right now that's going to change everything for us. We're embracing new technologies. And part of that is going to bleed into how we build relationships, how we overcome barriers. And that is going to affect how we build new relationships. I hear owners talk all the time about how they like the virtual meetings. And you know what? That's how I'm going to meet with people. So we have to figure out how to work around it. We have to figure out how to embrace it. And so that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. So I appreciate the wonderful introduction from Sally. Again, I'm with Elevate Marketing Advisors, and we just love helping firms grow. And one of the ways we do that is we do have a cohort program. So if anybody's interested, please reach out and let me know. We do work with firms all across North America. So it takes 5 or more rejections and 6 to 8 client touches to close a deal. But we all know those touches are looking a little bit different now. And part of that as well is looking at how do we build new relationships when we can't physically be in front of people. Now, I know there's places where people get to go out and go golfing. Hey, golfing, Sally and I were talking about this earlier today. Golfing has become really popular for networking because we can be socially distant, right? But not everybody golfs. And if you're like me, I live in the beautiful state of Utah. Here pretty soon, we're not going to be able to be golfing, right? So we've got to find those other ways to reach out. So I want to talk to you about using the 4 C's. We need to be curious, be collaborative, be creative, and build camaraderie. So let's first talk about being curious. Research, research, research. I tell anybody, before you ever reach out to somebody, before you ever reach out to a client, a colleague that you've never met, do a little digging. And folks, I've heard people say, but isn't that a little creepy? Look, LinkedIn was built for stalking, folks. It's the only acceptable form of stalking. LinkedIn was built for research. It was built to go and take a look and see, hey, who do we have in common? Who do we know? Also, maybe, did we go to school together? Did we go to the same school, maybe at different times? Did we work at the same company at one time? I don't know about you, but I found that tons of times in this industry. So look up those people and their company. Gather some facts. Do a little Google searching. What can you find out about that person? Now, when we're talking about, again, developing a new relationship, what icebreaker can you find? What opener? What warm opening can you find? Because you know what? Nobody wants to make a cold call, and nobody should have to. There's so many resources out there so that we don't have to make that cold call. We can make a warm call, but you've got to do your research. So start on LinkedIn. What can you find out about them? And don't just focus on the professional. Look at the personal. I had a gentleman once that I noticed on his LinkedIn that he was part of a scuba diving club. So my first question to him when I met him was, Joe, where is your favorite place you've ever gone scuba diving? And you know what? He kind of perked up and looked at me and had this giant smile on his face. Way better than how's the weather or tell me about that project. All of a sudden, we went from not knowing each other to having that warm opening. So imagine being able to use that in a setting like this, where we're on video and we don't get to be in front of each other. This is even harder to build that rapport. So having that little fact, that little thing can really help you. And let's face it, if you were to interview a prospective employee, would you expect them to go check out your company's website? Would you expect them to know something about your company? Of course you would. Yet so often we don't do that with our clients. And it is very similar. Our clients expect us to know a little bit. They expect us to not ask questions that we can find out on our own. So do your homework. Ask your strategic partners. If you're an architect, ask that contractor. If you're a contractor, ask that engineer. But talk to those strategic partners and say, hey, do you know this person? A warm introduction is always best. This is, again, we shouldn't have to make cold calls. If we can find that commonality, if we can find that little bit of information, if we do our research, and then ask our strategic partners, what do you know about this person? Can you do an introduction for me? It's always helpful. Now, social media is a must. It's a requirement in today's business world, whether you like it or not. We have to embrace social media. And right now, people are on social media more than ever. Now, if you're going to pick one platform, LinkedIn is the one. That's where your business contacts are. Like I said earlier, use it for research. Use it to find that connection. Connect with your clients. And a little tip, folks, send them a message when you connect. Don't just blindly connect. I've had a few marriage proposals on LinkedIn, a few inappropriate messages on LinkedIn. So I really try to watch that and try to be really careful about who I connect with. So I want to see that email. I want to see that message that says, hey, I love your brand, or hey, looks like we know this person in common, or would love to connect and talk in the future, just so I know that person's for real. Follow your clients. Look at what they're posting. What are they interested in? What do they care about? And it gives you the opportunity, again, to have those moments where you can connect. Now, especially, again, with somebody new who you may not know, you're going to gain a lot of insight into what's important. Are they posting a lot about sustainability? Wow, that's a touch point for them. That's a hot button for them. That's a great entree into having a conversation. But we can learn a lot by following. Like what they post. They may notice that. But if you want to beat the algorithm, okay, LinkedIn is built on an algorithm. If you only post something once a month or once every couple of months, you're going to fall down on the list as quickly as you went up. And the easiest way to build that LinkedIn algorithm and beat the algorithm, I should say, is to share, because a share is the same as a post. So go onto your clients, share what they post. Hey, great article posted by one of our clients. Hey, great project in our city. It's so simple and so easy. And you know what? It only takes a minute. All of these tips I'm telling you do not take a lot of time. Ask questions. This is one of the most important things you can do. Ask confirming questions. So I understand that in your position, this may be a challenge for you. Would you agree? And then they may say, wow, absolutely, you are dead on. You're going to build respect. Or they may say, you know what? I can see that. That may be a problem for some of my colleagues, but for me, this is it. And then you gain new insights. Ask exploratory questions. My favorite question to ask an owner and a client is, what keeps you up at night? What do you worry about? Ask them questions that give you insights into who they are. What are their needs? What are their pain points? What are their challenges? If you want to build new relationships, ask as many questions as possible. And if you ask more questions than you tell, again, you're going to gain a lot of respect. Now, speaking of asking questions, we need to show empathy. Imagine yourself in somebody else's shoes. Focus on listening. Notice verbal and body language cues. Understand all their pain points beyond design, beyond construction, beyond what you do every day. And take action and offer help. So I want to share a great example of empathy. An architecture firm who was working with a hospital. They called their healthcare client and they said, what's your biggest struggle? What are you worried about? Can we help? And they said, well, can you make face shields? Because that's our problem right now. And this was right when the pandemic hit. They said, as a matter of fact, we have a 3D printer. We would love to do that for you. They had people volunteer to come in every day for the next couple of weeks. They made face shields and they delivered a case of face shields to that client. And the client was floored. The client was blown away. Had nothing to do with what they did for that client. Had everything to do with what that client needed in the moment. That client was forever grateful. So now imagine this in a scenario of a new relationship. I know you're extremely busy. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but could I just spend 15 minutes understanding your pain points? You're likely to get a yes. Could you share with me what you're concerned about? And then find a way to help them. You will forever be in their thoughts. Get personal. A great way to build new client relationships is also in just getting personal with people, taking the personal approach. Don't just talk business. Get to know them on that level. I had a client, a gentleman who, it was my first time meeting him. I was building a new relationship. He was the new CEO of a Florida airport, moved from California. And I said, Steve, why Florida? What made you move here? And he says, well, you know what, Jen? This is my last gig. I'm going to retire. And my wife wanted to retire in Florida. So immediately I knew he was brilliant. Happy wife, happy life, right? Smart man. But what I also learned about him was he didn't care about the latest and greatest and newest technology. He didn't want to be in the paper for the coolest new airport. He wasn't going to run the next LAX. His goal was to retire. His goal was to sail off into the sunset with his wife. So we knew what he cared about and wanted was make it easy. Take the pressure off of him. Do everything we can to make his job and his life easy. And when we proposed on a project, that's exactly what we did, and we won. So think about how sometimes even understanding about somebody's personal goals or personal reasons, what would that mean in professional? They can often lead into the other. Now, that also leads us to this. And you guys are going to be having these match networking events or match networking appointments. And I really want you to think about this. Does anybody like small talk? No, we do it because we're uncomfortable. We don't know what else to do. How's the weather? How about those insert team name? How about you engage in big talk? I would love to say this is my idea, but it's a brilliant TED Talk. I encourage you all to go watch. Ask big questions. What life lesson do you wish everyone was taught in school? What a cool question that is. You can ask a big question that's relevant to today. You can ask questions that are personal. Hey, once we start traveling overseas again, where's the first place you want to go? And then they answer, and what would you do? And now you're gaining insight into them more as a person and having a deeper understanding of them. You might find out something fun. Maybe you know my husband's favorite question to ask somebody, and he's done this on airplanes. It's what I love about him. He'll notice a couple and he will notice that they're married and he'll say, so what's your love story? Share that with me. And the way they light up and reconnect in that moment is joyful. What kinds of questions could you ask to get to know people? Look up Big Talk. I actually have a deck of Big Talk cards. They're fantastic. They have all these great questions. And when I used to do networking events and I taught networking, I would bring these cards out and say, look through these, pick a couple of them and use them. I also gave them to a good friend when he started dating. And he said, Jen, it was the best dating tool ever because he got stuck on, what do I talk about? But think about this from that get personal. Engage people in Big Talk. Ask big questions. You're going to learn something. And you know what? They are going to remember you. And isn't that the point of developing these new client relationships, is that you want somebody to remember you. You want to be remembered. So ask big questions. And I want you guys to try this in your matched networking appointments. All right, our next section is be collaborative. So develop thought leadership together. Content, publication, speaking. It's a great opportunity to reach out to a new client and say, we're writing an article on the challenges of X. Could we interview you? Could we work together on the article? We think it would be a great piece to share with the industry, and we want to better the industry. Would you be interested in speaking on this? That is a great way to partner, serve together. Organizations like SAME are perfect opportunities to serve with your clients, to get to know them, to be able to work together on an organization project through this association before you start working together on projects. They get to know you on that level of, man, what a hard worker that person is, or what a great communicator. So serve together. It can be the key to building that respect so that they start to build that trust in you before they even hire you. Celebrate together. Any opportunity you have to celebrate with that client. Again, maybe this is somebody you haven't worked with. Celebrate their success. Celebrate their wins. Congratulations on that project you just finished, even if they didn't work with you. What a great project. Congratulations on your promotion. Hey, these are great opportunities. Send them a congratulatory note or card. Happy for you. So great to see your accomplishments. People remember those who celebrate with them. Next, we need to be creative, especially today. Connect and find ways to connect when we can't connect physically. A friend of mine is doing this program. She's calling it Go-To Eating. I love it. So she sends a Uber gift card, Uber Eats gift card, or one of their favorite local restaurants that they're trying to help thrive. And especially if you know maybe your client has a favorite restaurant. Now, keep in mind that if you're working with private clients, you can do that. If you're working with public clients, you may not be able to, so ask that question. Another friend of mine did a bourbon tasting where they had somebody come on and talk about the different bourbons, right? Or a microbrew tasting, or a cooking class. We're getting ready to do a mixology class in November with our cohort groups. Coffee talk. Hey, I'd love to jump on. Can we just have coffee together? Normally, I would love to meet you at Starbucks, but could we meet on Zoom? Could we connect for a few minutes? I have a friend who, when the pandemic hit, he was actually living in Seattle and working in California, and he was a business developer. All of a sudden, he can't make those trips he would make. Now, again, this was a private client, found out his favorite bottle of bourbon, sent it to him and said, normally I would take you out for a drink, but since I can't, would you join me on Zoom and we'll have a drink together and get to know each other? They now meet every single month. So how can you connect virtually? Get creative. Think of something new and different. And here is how you get them to say yes, folks. Don't send our invites. Aren't we all Zoomed out? We're all tired. The Zoom is getting to us, right? I don't know about you guys, but last week I was literally on from 8 to 5. I had 2 breaks for 5 minutes each where I could run out and go to the bathroom and run out and grab a sandwich and scarf it down. Now, if you send a 15-minute invite, aren't you more likely to get a yes? Hey, want to join me for coffee for 15 minutes? Hey, you want to join me for a drink for 15 minutes? You want to join me for lunch for 15 minutes? Can we just chat? Now imagine you're on that other end and you've got a busy day. Aren't you more likely to say yes to 15 minutes than an hour? Think of that from the standpoint of if you're doing education or anything else. We used to do 1 hour. We had a free webinar series, which is still on demand. They were 1 hour. When we got done with that 11-week series, we decided to continue it monthly and take it down to 30 minutes. Give me 30. Because we know that people's time is precious and they want things in small bites. So think about, how do you do that small bite? When you're thinking about content, thought leadership, social media, can you do a tips video that takes 2 minutes? Send that to that client and post it on your social media. Think in smaller, bite-size opportunities. Can be a really great way to connect and be cognizant of other people's time. Now, we have to build camaraderie with new relationships. And camaraderie is simply defined as mutual trust and friendship. Tap into your network. Look, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You know what? Because of social media, we are now 2.1 degrees separated from everybody. I can't tell you how many opportunities I've had where I've known somebody. I was on Facebook recently, and my neighbor who I was connected with reached out to me, and she says, "You're not going to believe this. I see this person that we have this mutual connections with, and I look and notice it's your mother. I go to click on your mom's name, and it says we have 2 people in common. It was me and my cousin that she went to high school with." Now, mind you, I'm not from Utah. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I lived on the East Coast. And this woman in Utah happened to go to school with my long-lost cousin, who is close with my mother. I mean, this is the world we live in. It is a small world. Disney said it best, and I apologize for the earworm you're all going to have now, but it's a small world after all. And this Kevin Bacon, the 6 degrees, is exactly why. So you need to tap into your network. So when you go on LinkedIn, who are you connected with? Can you call that person? Now, I did this once. I was interviewing with one of the largest municipalities in the country. And when I looked on LinkedIn, I noticed he was connected with a friend of mine. And when I went to her Facebook to reach out to her, I noticed they were Facebook friends. And I said, oh, they must be more than just colleagues because they're on Facebook together. I reached out and I said, what can you tell me? She gave me a wealth of information, from things like he loves going to the beach and he does a beach vacation twice a year, to don't ever be late and don't do XYZ. So when I met with him, I said, so we have a mutual friend, Jennifer. He said, oh, Jennifer's amazing. I said, I hear you like the beach. And he says, I do. He lit up. He opened up. His whole body language went from stiff to loose and friendly. And we had a wonderful conversation. So use that network to open the door. And in all of it, you have to be authentic. Be vulnerable, be honest, be passionate, and be you. So I coach technical people into becoming doer sellers. Now, I know sometimes the term is seller doer, but most people I coach have to do before they sell. And the biggest complaint I get when I go in is, Jen, I don't want to be a smarmy salesperson. That's not who I am. I don't want you to be. And that's the first thing that I tell them. I want you to be you, the best version of you. But I want you to be authentic. People can see through that. So especially with a new client relationship, be you. Be a little vulnerable. You know that your client is homeschooling? Say, oh, that's got to be tough. And are you going through the same thing? Share that. This is one of the toughest things I'm going through. People will connect with that. Be honest. If you don't know the answer, tell them. Don't ever be dishonest. That will quickly get you a negative relationship in a heartbeat. And here's the thing. People connect with passion and purpose. Anybody who's ever met me would know that I love what I do. I am in my element. I get great satisfaction out of motivating people and helping people. And in fact, I share my why on my LinkedIn and with people all the time. My dad worked for GE. He was a regional sales customer service manager. And I would go to work with him as a little girl. I was a daddy's girl. I loved going to work with him. I would play boss and play teacher with his chalkboard in his office. But I would watch him, and I would watch how he motivated people. I would watch how he built people up, how he lifted them up, how he taught them, how he showed them they could do anything. I would watch as he would win awards and take those bonuses and use that for team events. Again, bringing teams together. I knew one day I wanted to do that for others. And every day I get to do that in my job. That passion is honestly why most of our clients say they hire us. My business partner is the same way. Our entire team is. We get great satisfaction and passion out of what we do. So I want you to imagine something. You got a brand new Ferrari, Lamborghini, whatever your car of choice is. You are going to hand those keys over to somebody. Are you going to hand them to just anybody? It's a car. Yeah, thanks. I'll go drive it. It's just a car. I'm going to go through McDonald's and throw my trash in it and not really take care of it. And, you know, I'll probably drive it through a mud pit and not clean it. And it's no big deal. It's just a car. Or do you want somebody that says, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to drive a Lamborghini. I'm going to take great care of it. I'm going to make sure that it's clean, it's spotless. I'm going to take care of it as if it was my own. Who would you hire? Who would you hand over those keys to? Your clients' projects are their Lamborghinis. Do they want to hand that over to somebody who's like, it's a project. I went to school for it. Whatever. It's what I have to do. Or do you want to hand it over to somebody who says, I love what I do and I'm going to take great care of you? Project that passion and share that passion, and you will connect with clients in a whole new way. Find common ground. And again, it's not just business, it's personal. The only way we find common ground is by asking questions, by talking to people, by listening. Find out what you have in common and how maybe you can even help each other. That's a great way to develop new relationships. Again, it takes asking questions. It takes caring. It takes being genuine. All these things that I just talked about. We have to do all those things in order to find this. I've had countless examples where I've had people that the relationship was business cold. You know, hello, very nice to see you, Jen. All of a sudden, we found that common ground, and it was a totally new relationship. From hugs to laughter to seeking advice. All of those things are critical. Be accessible. If your client wants to meet on a technology platform, be willing to do that. Be available if they want to text. I had a client who told me, I said, what's the best way to get in touch with you? How would you like me to reach out? And she said, Jen, just text me. This was a secretary of a DOT. I said, well, fantastic. I'd love to text you. She said, if you email me, it's going to go to my assistant and it's going to go in the barrage of emails. I'd much rather you just text me and then I can respond. Absolutely. Ask people, how do you want to be accessible? And then make sure that you are. Communicate clearly. Communications is one of the hardest things in a relationship, period. Period. How can we communicate? Part of this is we have to move to others' communication styles. We have to understand our own and understand how other people like to communicate. I am a 1000% extrovert, and anybody that knows me knows this. My husband is a thinker. He's got to mull it over. He's got to think through these things. One of the things that we learned early on in our marriage is that learning how to communicate with each other was critical. And I use this as an example because it's about relationships, period, whether that's with a new client, a colleague, a friend, a partner, whatever. So knowing this, as an extrovert, I'm also a dreamer. Let's move to Europe. I want to buy a tiny house and put it in the mountains. Oh, IKEA is dangerous for me. What about that in our house and that in our house? And oftentimes I'm just dreaming. And I looked at my husband, he's like stressing his face. He's got the calculator out. He's trying to figure it out. And I said, honey, just dream with me. Why are you ruining this? And he said, why are you stressing me out? He's calculating. Well, we can't move to Europe because we can't afford that right now. We have to pay off the house. We have to, just dream. So we learned a little trick where I say, I'm going to extrovert right now. I'm going to dream. And he knows he can put the calculator down. And we can dream together. And then when I mean it and say, we need to buy a new house because of COVID, which we did, he knew at that point, I said, this is for real. Bring out the calculator. Let's figure it out. But we had to learn how one another communicated. So think about that from a client relationship. And think about that from a new client relationship. Asking that client, what is the best way to communicate? How do you like to communicate? Are you a get to the point kind of person? Do you like to mull things over? Are you an extrovert? What does that look like for you? And how can I best communicate with you? It's a great part of an onboarding process for a new client too, is do an interview with them and ask them what their preferences are. So often we tell our clients, this is how we will communicate with you, instead of saying, how do you want us to communicate with you? It's the difference in a client-centric approach. Now, we also need to set and honor boundaries. What are those boundaries? Don't call after 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. Or ask that client. I had a client who had texted me one time and I said, I'm sorry, who is this? She says, oh my gosh, I just crossed the line. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to text you. And I said, no, you can text me anytime. I just need to know who you are because you're not in my phone. So set those boundaries. What are those boundaries? What are their boundaries? Ask them that question. I want to be cognizant of your time. Understand their boundaries and honor them. All right, now here's the question we all have. How the heck am I going to have time to develop new relationships? If you're not in a pure business development position, maybe you are a doer seller. Maybe you are somebody that has to do it all. Maybe you're even on the agency side. And part of what you need to do is find new contractors and PM firms. How can you make the time? So I want to share with you first that I am a doer seller. So I own my business with my business partner. We have to position ourselves. We have to market. I meet with clients on a regular basis. I meet with potential clients on a regular basis. Oh, wait, and I have to deliver services. So oftentimes my husband goes to bed, I'm working on proposals, I'm working on a presentation, I'm working on something else. I get it. We're trying to squeeze all that stuff in. But I also want to remind you, all these things we just talked about, they're not mind-blowing. I get that. A lot of them are ABCs, but they also don't take a lot of time. They're little things. So we have to make the time. So I want to introduce this concept to you. It's something really simple, but it's been a game changer for many people that I work with. And this is not only great to use for new client relationships, but existing client relationships. Prioritize, schedule the time. And here's a simple way to do it. Make them your bookends. Bookend your day. 5 minutes at the beginning of the day. And folks, before you get into the black hole email, because we all know once we get sucked into that, we're goners. So before you start your day, 5 minutes, look that client up on LinkedIn. Find that connection and reach out. Set up that 5-minute or 15-minute coffee talk. Come up with 3 big questions. And then 5 minutes at the end of your day. You will be amazed at what you can do in 10 minutes a day. Track it. This is my challenge to you for 30 days. Track, analyze, and share all the things you can get done in 10 minutes a day. It is absolutely amazing what you can get done in 10 minutes a day. You will be surprised, and we'll share with others how easy it is. We have to persist. So Greg Bell, MBA Hall of Famer, wrote a great book called Water the Bamboo. Giant timber bamboo is planted. Year 1 through 3, they cultivate it, farm it, feed it, water it. 0 happens. And most people are like, I'm out. Year 4, it grows 90 feet in 60 days. Bamboo. You have to persist. Relationships are not overnight. They take time. And trust takes time to build. If I said to you, do you trust me? What would you say? And if you said no, I would be offended. How dare you not trust me? You don't even know me. And that's what we expect. We expect people to trust us without knowing us. But trust takes time to build. People hire people they like and trust. And that does not get built overnight. So you have to persist. Thank you so much for the time. I do want to go ahead and answer. There was a question that came in. Is there a good ratio of personal touches, talking about family interests, etc., versus professional touches when talking with a new prospect? That is such a great question. And I think we have to balance it. Okay. And you have to feel that person out. If you notice a person's getting a little uncomfortable, move to the professional quickly. If you notice that they want to talk about the personal, don't cut them off. Enjoy that time being able to talk on a personal level. You're just going to build that relationship and build that trust. But you just have to be mindful and cognizant and listen and really be present for those conversations to gauge that.
Thanks, Jen. I did have a question that kind of came up as I was listening. So one of the tips that I had heard that I actually really liked had to do with your discussion on connecting was that connecting doesn't necessarily need to be connecting to people. It can be connecting people to ideas or connecting people to events or thoughts that you might have had. But taking the time each week to, and they called it Connect 4, but connect either two people or connect a person to an idea or a thought, and use that as sort of the way to spread knowledge. Yeah. So I really thought that was one of the tips that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and it shows value, right? So you always want to show value to those people. I love that, because if you think about a new client, maybe they don't need you, maybe they need somebody else, and we just go, oh, never mind. Instead of saying, you know what, I can't help you with that, but my friend Sally can totally help you with that. Let me connect you and do that introduction. I mean, that value can be huge. And again, remember, it's not just about the professional. It's also about the personal. I'll share a great example. When I lived in Florida, we had a new transportation authority leader come in. He brought in all new staff, and they were all new to the area. Brought them in from different states. And so through an organization much like at SAMI, it was through FSMPS, we put on an event welcoming them. a welcome kit. Here's our favorite places. Here's all the things you should do. And I presented him with that and just said, if you ever have questions, let me know. Well, I became his speed dial for, it's my wife's anniversary. Where should I take her? My kids want to do this. Where should we go? And you know what that led to? Later, it led to, we're having a problem with our public engagement. You've lived here a long time. You know a lot of people. Would you come in and help us? And at the time, I was working inside a civil engineering firm. We developed the reputation at that point of hire our firm, you get me for free. And I became this valuable resource, which all started on a personal level, just because I cared enough to welcome somebody to town. So think about those ways we can connect them to, you know, something of value, and that could be anything of value.
Great. And then there's one other question that we have in the QA area. It has to do with how do you make the most of the 10 minutes? So I know that we talked a lot about getting to know people, but when you've only got 10 minutes, what are kind of like the ways to get it and hit it?
Yeah, I love it. So especially when you only have 10 minutes, and I love these kind of things. It's like speed networking, right? So get in there and ask a question. Ask a big question. Think of that big talk, right? Ask them that, you know, whatever that question is. Maybe it's when COVID is over, or when we can travel overseas, where's the first place you would go? Or what is one of the positive things that have come out of the last year for you? Asking a question like that could open their eyes to, A, you're going to sound different probably than most everybody else, and B, you're going to be memorable. So try one of those questions that's memorable. What's the hardest thing that's happened? What's the best thing that's happened? What are you grateful for? Engage in big talk.
Great. And then I just have one other question. You had mentioned Water the Bamboo as a resource. Are there any other books or articles or TED Talks that you think are a useful resource for those who need a little bit of extra to their matchmaking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just, there's so many resources. I mean, you know, the Big Talk is a fantastic TED Talk. I love TED Talks because, you know, they're 15 minutes, they're bite-sized. You can go in, you can get a couple of nuggets and go. So there's also this great podcast. It's a guy named Brian Johnson. My husband actually loves him. But what I think is cool is he does this thing called Philosopher's Notes, where he reviews books. And there are all these books that he gives you, like these 5-minute bite size. Here are the key points out of a book. So if you don't have time to read a bunch of books, it's kind of an interesting concept to look at. But I'd also reach out to your friends, your network. Go on LinkedIn. Hey, what's the latest book you've read? Simon Sinek, all-time fave of mine. TED Talks, the books, Start With Why. All of that I think is great. And that's another great conversation topic. When you go into these speed networking events, ask somebody their why. That would be a great question. Why did you get into this industry? Why do you stay? What is that thing that connects you? And you'll learn a lot about somebody, and then think about how you would answer that question yourself.
That's great. I think many of the questions that especially on the federal side, the government clients are going to get the same questions over and over and over again. So finding something unique to help you stand out is going to be really important, and in a good way, right? Like, you don't want to be like, who was that guy who asked me about like the thing? But you know, like, I think there's some really appropriate questions after having done your research about the client that would be a good connecting piece.
Yeah. And so, you know, what's great about that too, Sally, is you're going to stand out. You're going to be memorable by asking something different. And I'm a firm believer that in networking events like this, you don't talk business. You get to know somebody and then you follow it up. Hey, do you mind if I follow up with you and schedule a 15-minute call to ask you some questions about some upcoming projects, right? So often at conferences, live or virtual, people kind of get inundated with all those questions, clients do, and then they're like, oh. So if you're the refreshing voice that just wants to talk about them and how they're doing and what's going on with them, and then they are going to be so willing to then actually spend one-on-one time where they're not rushed talking with you about work.
Great. All right, well, did you have any closing notes that you want to share with anybody?
I didn't. I so appreciate everybody here, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. Reach out to me, and like Sally said, we have a great cohort program for C-suite folks as well as marketing and BD. So if you have any interest, please reach out. We'd love to have you join our group.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. I am Sally Clark with AFG. This is Jen Newman with Elevate Marketing. And we're going to have a few closing notes from FSMPS in regards to upcoming programming for the amazing virtual small business conference. It is the largest conference that FSMPS puts on each year, which is why we invest so much time and energy in making sure that the attendees are up to speed, are well prepared, and enjoy their experience. So thank you very much, Jen, for being a part of this experience.
Thank you for the invitation. Really appreciate it. Everybody have an awesome day.
All right, great.
Well, thank you both, Sally and Jen. That was some really wonderful information, and it is really going to help our attendees for this year on our virtual SBC. To learn more about the Match Networking, you can visit our website. We have lots of how-to guides and videos on how to make appointments for Match Networking. Match Networking is going to be one-on-one this year with government agencies and large businesses. Appointments for small businesses are going to open on October 23rd, and for all other attendees, they will open on October 30th. You can find information on our website using our Help, Tools, and Resources page. There's lots of information, including sneak peeks on the virtual platform, some great tips on how to prepare for SBC, and marketing tools that you can share with other attendees and your employers. Just a reminder to mark your calendar. We have one more pre-conference attendee webinar on October 27th. We're going to be doing a sneak peek of the live event portal. October 30th, as I've said, is Match Networking appointments for all attendees are going to be open. And then November 3rd, we do want to remind you to vote, but we are going to have a sneak peek of our live event portal, and it's going to be our soft launch day. That day, we will also have our first timer orientation. We thank you for your participation today. And if you have any questions or need assistance, please contact SAME. You can do so on our website or send us an email. We want to make sure that you see all of our sponsors and visit them during live virtual SBC in our expo hall. Thank you so much and have a great day.